Thank you for joining, everyone. We just mentioned we're just going to take a few more moments for a few more people to show up, and harmoniously we'll start the spaces off. Thank you. Please retweet so everyone knows the space is happening today. Thank you.
All right. I think I've got all the tweets shared to the top that are relevant to what we'll be discussing today. If maybe wait for Daniel to join and then we'll get underway. There he is. Welcome, Daniel. How are you today?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing great, awesome. Thank you. Okay, I think I'll go ahead and get started. Just, I know everybody's here is anxious to get the AMA portion going, but just wanted to give a quick intro to the DAO and as well as some things going on, and then we'll get right into the questioning. The community DAO is the DAO that represents the entirety of the Harmony community. The Harmony community DAO mandates are as follows. These mandates serve as the ultimate role for the Harmony community DAO. The first is growth, to onboard users on missions and culture, pollinate values across communities. The second is engagement, to amplify content of roadmap and milestones and create creative campaigns of products. The third is diversity, to solicit voices and votes in forums and reinforce strong governance participation. The purpose of these Twitter spaces is to inform you of community activities surrounding the DAO, provide updates to the Harmony roadmap, and announce upcoming events and new developments within the community. But most importantly, these spaces are an opportunity for you, the community, to ask questions and provide opinions on a number of subjects that you feel fall within our mandates. The first tweet that I shared at the top, just to let everybody know, the community DAO will begin hosting its weekly meetings to the public, and that will take place on our Discord server. You can follow the link at the tweet above and join our server. Those will be Monday nights at 7 p.m. UTC, 3 p.m. Eastern. Would love to have a good turnout for that. The next tweet over is a participation form which the DAO has put together to help understand our community a little bit better, and there's just some basic questions on there. It should only take you a couple minutes to fill out. Next tweet over, on Wednesdays, the community DAO is hosting open work sessions in the Crypto Arcade. We will have a different topic each week to discuss. Like this past Wednesday, we discussed DAO sustainability. And it's a nice opportunity to have kind of an informal environment for open participation and contributions to the DAO. The next tweet over is a tweet put together by one of our speakers today, RJ, addressing some of the technical issues with Harmony. So that will be relevant to today's discussion. So please check that out. The next is also relevant to today's discussion. Wellness Node has put together a community sentiment report. We will be discussing that today, so click on that if you'd like to follow along with that. One more point to bring up. If you look at the next tweet over, the community DAO recently held elections for Q2, and the governors have been installed, and we're already getting to work for the next few months. So if you'd like to find a list of the current governors, that is available in the tweet above. Also, today, the community DAO put forth a proposal to develop the crazy.1 domains. We would love to make this into something that the community would really enjoy taking part in. We have big plans for this, and if you'd like to read more, you can follow the tweet above and check out our proposal, and we would really appreciate you participating in the poll and maybe offering suggestions or voices of support. Just a couple more items. The Creative DAO elections are coming up soon, Sunday, April 10th. Make sure you have 100 Harmony available in your wallet unstaked so that you're eligible to vote. Those are just the requirements necessary to vote with the new snapshot system. There will be an AMA tomorrow, hosted from the community DAO account So please check that out. And last but not least, you can subscribe to the Harmony Community Calendar. If you follow the link above, it will take you to the Google Calendar where you can subscribe and keep up to date with all of the Twitter Spaces and events going on in the community. Now I'm going to hand it over to Bricktop, who will welcome our guests.
Thank you, Harmonious Dude. Hi everyone, and thanks for joining the Community DAO Spaces. First off, we'd just like to mention to everyone, we do these spaces every Friday at 11 a.m. PST and on Mondays at 7 p.m. PST. So feel free to come along and join the discussions and decide the direction of the DAO. You're always welcome to join. So let's get to it.
Quick point, Bricktop. Yep. We actually ceased the Monday Twitter Spaces. Instead, we will be doing the open town hall meetings in the Discord server.
Got you. Sorry for that, guys. Yeah, so just Fridays at 11 a.m. For the spaces. So let's get to it. Today, we're lucky enough to have Daniel, RJ, and Jack from the Harmony Core team. Welcome, guys, and thank you for coming to speak to the community today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
More than welcome. So before we get started, I just want to mention to the community the main focus of the space today and AMA will be regarding Harmony transactions, RPCs, transaction spam, and the network and infrastructure. So I'd like to ask one of the team members to introduce themselves, just so everyone's aware if they've never heard from the team before. To introduce themselves, let them know what they do at Harmony. Can we start with Daniel, if possible?
Sure. Again, thanks for having us. So what I do at Harmony is actually changed very recently, and now my current focus is on external communication, with a focus on community communication. And that's was recently changed as my focus after one of our community members, Sean Wellness One, put together the sentiment report. But yeah, so my responsibility right now is making sure that our communication to the community is clear, making sure that our communication to the community goes out. And making sure that we are staying in touch with the community, making sure that the concerns of the community are being heard, and not just heard, but we're also doing something about it, making sure that messaging goes out as well. Because it's one thing to say that we hear you; it's another thing to say that we're doing something about it. And I'm a strong believer in building trust through action, and that takes time. So hopefully with some of our new initiatives, some of which we haven't really announced yet, but with some of the new initiatives that we have coming out, communication-wise, we will prove that. We will prove that we are listening, and we will prove that we are doing something about it. So yeah, that's my main focus. I'm also on the grants team. So I assist the grants team. I assist Jack is on it as well as a few others. But we look at the grants, we assign them out, ask relevant questions, approve, deny, and then if they're approved, then walk them through the process of going through their milestones. That's another thing that I'm in charge of. And last thing I'll say, like everyone else, we all wear many different hats on this team. So there's more that I do, but that's the primary focus.
Thank you, Daniel. And we'd love to speak a little bit more about some of them topics later on in the space. And RJ.
Hey guys, this is RJ. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Harmony. So I'm mostly in charge of the chain design and development, making sure the chain runs smooth and fast and secure mostly. So I lead our protocol team of a couple people developing new features such as a faster consensus, a better P2P network, or a cross-shard messaging system or protocol. So I also lay out roadmap for the engineering team, mostly focus on like how the protocol should evolve and be sustainable for the longer term, right? Making sure all the staking proof of stake mechanism are reasonable, and also the validator community and all the other community are happy with the design. And also, whenever there are new protocol governance proposals from the community, I will need to make sure that it's wise decision to approve that change, right? So that the network will get better and better, but not getting having bad choices and getting worse. Yeah, so that's mostly what I do here.
Thank you, RJ. And finally, Jack.
Hi, everyone. Like Daniel said earlier, yes, we do wear multiple hats here. I'm responsible for, the besides grants and business development with partnerships, and most recently the Harmony Venture Network that was launched to help ecosystem builders grow on our to the next level by getting investments and whatnot. We can go into that later. I think the main things that people are interested in is on the cloud operations side. So all of the RPC networks and whatnot, I help contribute to support and also help scale it to the next level. We are also looking at, as part of my role in partnerships, to gain new partners that can help support the network, starting with Pocket Networks late last year. We recently also onboarded ChainStack and upcoming with QuickNode. And these are all RPC network providers, whether they are centralized or decentralized. Those are the things that I help look after. So those are some of the areas that I'm responsible for.
Thank you so much, Jack, and everyone else there. So if we can start with you, Jack, we know that we have challenges to overcome when it comes to RPCs that we can discuss today. But let's start with this question. What are some accomplishments of our RPC nodes and infrastructure that you'd like the community to know about?
That's a great point. So back in, August or September when I first came on, I noticed that the traffic patterns were growing and DeFi Kingdoms was maturing and gaining a lot of attention. A lot of organic traffic was coming on. But then later on, there were a lot of spam traffic that was coming on as well. Of course, battling spam, you may or may not know, there are many ways of doing mitigating unwanted traffic. Some of them are at the entry point of how one would access the blockchain. That's through the RPC endpoints. And other ways are through the chain itself, which RJ can speak more about later. As for the growth of the RPC network and the changes that happened, there were many things that happened since August of last year. At first, we were only on one data center serving the entire world. And the number of servers behind the data center, inside the data center that are load balanced, meaning you come in, the endpoint will, on your MetaMask, when you connect to Harmony API to Harmony.1, it goes into a single server, a set of servers that are then spread out to maybe half a dozen servers at the back. That was back then. But now we are spread out to 8 different data centers spread out across the world, in the West Coast of the United States, East Coast, in Europe, and in Asia. And these are, 2 different data centers each for each of these regions. And this helps with a few things. One, it's with resiliency. So for example, if the access to the chain is like, let's say if a data center goes down, not to our fault, maybe their network got tripped by Sprint or one of the major network providers, then at least the rest of the regions can pick it up. Two is in terms of speed. If you're located in Ohio or in Germany or in Tokyo, you want the fastest connection to the closest point, closest server that's next to you. So with being spread out to 8 different data centers, you increase the speed of how you can access any transactions that you want to access through your MetaMask or through your DApp. So the experience becomes better. So yeah, so those are some of the changes that's been happening, at least on infrastructure level. And also the partnerships that we've onboarded with Pocket Networks. The users can optionally choose Pocket Networks as a provider in their MetaMask or in their DApp, so that they can access to the closest point of how the Pocket Networks will route the traffic to. And Pocket Networks have a very unique way of doing it in a very decentralized manner as well. So users are going to be happy, and also the RPC network providers are also rewarded when they serve RPC traffic from Harmony. So that's one partner we onboarded late last year. There were some hiccups, and there were some lessons learned through scalability issues, and we were working closely with the Pocket Networks team to resolve that. I think it's largely resolved by now. And the other thing is, we noticed that we needed to have like reliable developer endpoints. So instead of just hitting our developer endpoints, we can have developers partner up with teams like ChainStack, QuickNode, to get their own private APIs so that they can develop with confidence. And it's a freemium model. For example, with ChainStack, you can get a private endpoint with your own API key for 3 million requests per month for free. So even you yourself, if anybody that's interested in having their own private endpoint, just sign up with ChainStack and you can get your private endpoint and hook it up to your MetaMask. It's as easy as that. But usually it's developers that need a service like that. And if they were to grow and exceed that need, then they will start paying a small premium on that, a small fee for that reliable network, and go on from there. And QuickNode is coming on soon too. They are a very reliable provider as well. So we're really looking forward to see our developer ecosystem grow once we provide these toolings in front of them.
And Jack, real quick, just to add to that, and I apologize if you had mentioned this, but there's also the scaling that we've that we've performed in the RPC node count as well, right?
Oh, that's right. Spreading over 8 data centers means that we have a lot of nodes as well that's added to the network. I think in the past it was maybe I wouldn't name the numbers, but now we're more than 10 times, if not 15 times, the number of servers that's hosting the RPC network than before. So it's multiples, many multiples than what we had before. And thanks for pointing that out. Yeah.
So, Jack, we'd love for Harmony to be known not just for low transaction costs and 2-second finality, but also to be known for being stable and reliable with its RPC nodes. And it's no secret that Harmony's had issues handling RPC requests But that being said, what challenges are you working to address in the next few months to resolve this, and to make Harmony synonymous with stability?
Great question. Let me step back a little bit to also explain some of the advancements that have been done. We have, besides just throwing more hardware at the ecosystem so that we can automatically achieve scale, we also made sure that we put in health checks at the entry points to see whether a particular region is healthy, and if they begin to suffer from like surge in traffic or like spams attacking a particular region, that particular region will then be marked as unhealthy, and it gets rerouted to somewhere else, so that users will continue to have a pleasant experience. We've been monitoring these health of the regions pretty closely, and some of them are still, being marked as unhealthy for some periods of time, but they do recover rather quickly. And we have also put in like rate limiting on those nodes, so it will help with healthy, encouraging healthy traffic over unhealthy ones. So those are some of the things that we've been putting in place. In the future, one of the things that we're working on is to gain additional partners to help white label our endpoints. There's some discussions happening over there. And on the technology side, we're working on something called network splitting. So to split very heavy load endpoint calls that aren't usually made by end users. Let's say dApps will need to get a log of a history of transactions, and that takes on a very heavy load, and that might take a node a number of seconds to respond. And as 1 second in the Web2 world is forever. So we're splitting that traffic out to index databases so that our nodes will stay healthy for regular transactions. That's being worked on today. We don't have an ETA for that at this point. And that's some of the advancements that we're working on at the RPC level. I'd like to shift this discussion to RJ, because there are a lot more advancements at the chain layer that RJ may be able to talk about.
Yeah. So actually, there are more to talk about on even the RPC level. And I can give a more context about like all this RPC stability and all this like setting for the RPC. Right now, we actually have a backend dashboard that counts every single request from like all the other external developers, users, partners that's calling our RPC. And the number is actually more than 10 billion requests every day, sometimes even hundreds of billions every day right now. And if you compare to other chains, usually the number is just about hundreds of millions. That's already a big number that's coming out of lots of users. And we're actually getting traffic of 10 times more, or if not 100 times more traffic than other chains. So that's one of the reasons we are kind of getting a lot of stability concerns, because we definitely are handling huge amount of traffic. That's one of the major reasons. Like sometimes the RPC are not stable. And to address that, we are definitely adding more relimiting to the IP level. And we're actually integrating with Cloudflare, which is like a well-known kind of a network security firm that can help guard our RPC and to filter out like malicious calls, filter out like very high spams, and that will greatly like reduce like the number of like spam calls to our RPC. And actually, in the meantime, we're also increasing our staff for the DevOps engineers who are able to respond and handle and improve our RPC infrastructure stack. We aim to cover all the time zones, actually. So right now we have 1 or 2 DevOps engineer that covers Asian time zone and also US time zone, but we actually also hiring more people to cover the Europe and other of the time zones, so that whenever there are incident that happen on the RPC level, we can respond immediately and get it resolved immediately. So that's definitely some of the work we're still working on. And besides that, we're also optimizing the RPC serving kind of mechanism. So right now our RPC is fully EVM compatible, and that's the current implementation is not quite scalable because it's mostly designed for kind of a single node use, where like one developer launch a node and that developer just talk to that node like by one developer. So it's not quite scalable to serve like billions of queries every day. So one of the solutions we're currently working on is to make some of the major RPCs like get logs, like the EVM call RPC, so that those data are indexed and can easily scale to like billions of requests with just simply by adding more nodes. So that's one of the infrastructure level changes we're currently doing, and that will really make the serving stack much more efficient. And actually, this is the similar kind of technology that other kind of mature RPC serving services like Infura are already done. So we're actually we hit the growth pain. We have similar amount of traffic than other major chains like Ethereum, and now is the time to really kind of follow the same kind of optimization that they've been doing for years. So that's mostly for the RPC level optimization. And on the chain level optimization, there are definitely also a lot of things to share. So initially, if you guys remember, for the long-term community member, we launched our mainnet in 2019. And at that time, our block time is 8 seconds. And also at that time, there's not much not many transactions in the system. So we try to aim for faster block time, which is the same as the block finality. We improved it to from 8 seconds to 5 seconds, and later on to 2 seconds. And in the meantime, our traffic also peaked up, right? The transaction volume from like maybe only like thousands or hundreds of thousands transactions every day. Right now, we're handling millions of transactions every day. So it definitely put a lot of burden on the chain itself. So it's not like the optimization, like the effect is from 8 seconds down to 2 seconds, but the optimizations, the scale of optimization may happen like 10 times or even hundreds times because of the traffic also increased 10 times more, right? So overall, we definitely put a lot of effort to improve the chain efficiency on both the consensus level, the P2P level, and the database level. So for consensus, we have a lot of optimizations on the code to make it more efficient, and also on the consensus protocol itself. We introduced like pipelining, and also we use like lots of signature aggregation technology, so that the efficient is almost right now as fast as it could be. We basically squeezed out all the juice from the consensus engine. On the other side, I think on the P2P level, we also tuned the P2P parameter so that the redundant messages are not rebroadcasted again and again, and it will save lots of traffic for the validator and no runners. And also that will make the consensus and everything that's passed through the network more efficient and low cost. So besides consensus, we actually also optimize the transaction processing, or the EVM, state processing engine. And we added a lot of caching so that the same transaction won't be processed more than once, and all the results are cached and reused everywhere. So overall, definitely we put a lot of effort already on the chain protocol, and that's why we can achieve 2-second block time finality while handling millions of transactions every day. I think that's mostly some of the brief summary of the work we've been doing.
Thank you, RJ. And so for anyone listening, RJ recently wrote a technical thread about Harmony transaction ordering. So you can find that at the top of these spaces if you want to take a look at that maybe later on. And RJ, so one of Harmony's strong points is its sharding technology. Can you tell us more about how Harmony shards can help DApp scale and how we can handle multiple DFKs and other large projects in the future?
Yeah, sure. So Harmony's sharded and proof-of-stake network, we're actually the first one that launched with the sharding and proof-of-stake back in 2019. So our design of sharding basically take care of the security and also the efficiency and also kind of user friendliness. For our sharding, actually users with the same key can control the same account on all the shards. So actually each account is not limited to only one shard. So that's actually a lot easier to use for the end users. And also we use truly on-chain randomness to shuffle the validators, and that's the design for the resharding. And that's based on the research and proofs are guaranteed to basically ensure the security of the whole network. And each shard will be as secure as the whole network. And as more stake are staked, as more kind of token are staked, the more secure the network. That's the mechanism of a proof of stake. And specifically for us is the effective proof of stake. On the cross-shard kind of mechanism, we already released the design for the cross-shard messaging protocol. And that will be built in natively on the chain that support passing any token assets like HRC20 or any NFT assets across chain. And it's not only limited to asset transfer. You can also program other mechanism or logic as the developer wants, because it's like a generic messaging protocol. You can send any data as long as your contract between the two chain agrees with the same protocol, and that will be fully flexible for developing any logic and is fully secure. So that for the cross-shard messaging protocol is right now, we just started the development. After it's launched, actually applications like DFK, they can easily extend their game to other chains, just like they extend to Avalanche subnet, but without the hassle of bridging, because all the cross-shard messaging protocol are built in natively within the Harmony protocol, and you don't have to rely on a third-party bridge that will introduce additional security risk and trust factor. So for our cross-shard messaging is all built in, and the process of transferring or sending message across the shard will be much more smooth and more secure than bridge-based kind of cross-chain extension of your app. And also for our cross-shard, because it's within Harmony network, right? As I said, the user address or user account, you don't have to create a new account for other chains, or you don't have to kind of switch your kind of UI, because you simply need to change the shard ID, or in the MetaMask context is the chain ID. You just change the chain ID, and within the same Harmony network, you can control your asset or move your assets between different shards. So definitely with that feature launched, I expect more applications can be developed on the other shards, and that will also relieve the burden on the current shard 0, because that's mostly the applications exist right now. With the cross shard kind of transaction fee kind of market, with the other shard less loaded, the transaction fee and the block kind of block time will be more stable, more faster, like than shard 0, right? And more user or applications will enjoy the benefit of faster and cheaper shard if they migrate to the other shard. So I expect more applications will extend their kind of footprint in the other shards once the cross-shard messaging protocol is launched.
Thank you, RJ. Really appreciate that. And RJ, you mentioned in your thread, with the high transaction volume with projects such as DeFi Kingdoms, Tranquil, and Curve, is there anything that can be done to reduce the effect of the network, such as giving large project use of their own shard in the future?
So you're saying whether we have planned to give other shards to other major applications? Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the major goal for the company, to increase the utility of the other shard. We're definitely for all the new partners, or especially game applications, we definitely will recommend them to launch natively on the other shard first, such as shard 1. We also may put more incentive for them to launch there, so that we can just attract more users there, like such as providing some liquidity rewards for those new games or new applications that launch on the other shard. So yeah, as you asked, that's also what we've been thinking about every day, how to extend the utility to other shards, because right now most of the other shards are still very less used. And we would definitely love to see more applications to migrate to those shards, because those shards are very fast and cheap right now. And it's definitely a very smart choice to actually build on those shards.
Fantastic. And 2-second transactions are, they're phenomenal, especially when we're handling kind of 2 to 5 million transactions a day. It's hard to believe that we'll ever really need to push faster than this. However, with emerging technologies and the constant need for improvements, is Harmony still making a push for 1-second transactions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're constantly like pushing for that. So there is one major protocol change that's pending, like testing and potentially launch. Is right now the leader node in the consensus will try to collect 100% of the signature from all the validators. And for some of the slow validators, their signature may arrive later. And that's why the leader is actually spending almost 1 second to wait for all the signatures. So we're changing the consensus protocol so that the leader only wait for 2/3 of the signatures to confirm the block. And that's the bare minimum to reach the block finality. And for the rest of the signature, those signatures will be collected in the next block. So it's more like a overlay between two blocks kind of consensus, so that one block's consensus can be shortened, and that will probably give us like 0.8 second or even 1 second kind of shorter block time. But that's not the full picture, because right now this is a like very tightly integrated system for this blockchain. You don't just have consensus that's running. You have the database, you have the P2P network, you have all the RPC node that's trying to sync the new blocks, right? And we are definitely having some potential concerns about the RPC node that's right now is handling like billions of requests. That's also consuming lots of computer powers on their machine. So if we reduce the block finality to 1 second, those RPC nodes will also have more trouble just catching up with the latest block, because like processing those transactions may already take half a second, and if adding all the network delays or other kind of other frictions, like there's no room for new nodes to catch up to the latest block fast in a fast manner, and that's one of the main concerns or main areas that we want to fix, we want to improve. So on that front, we're actually considering switching the current database implementation to a more efficient version. And also we are optimizing the block commitment or block insertion logic, which means when you receive the block, you process it, you need to like write it into the database. And this whole logic processing and writing to the database, right now, there's still room for optimization. So the end goal is basically the end goal is for the block processing and commitment, it should take only maybe half a second. Then at that stage, we are more kind of comfortable or ready to push, to really turn the block time from 2 seconds to 1 second. Before that, even though maybe the consensus can achieve 1 second finality, the other part of the ecosystem and the stack of the of this infrastructure may also have a lot of burden to catch up, and that may affect even more the stability of some of the RPC nodes, and that's what we don't want to affect, right? Because that's really affecting the experience of the end users. So we are definitely also considering how all these changes will impact the user. So that's why we're kind of being cautious about changing it to 1 second finality right now.
Yeah, might I add that we're reaching a point where scalability is hitting a ceiling in one part, and then the other part needs to scale as well. So some of the things that we are looking at that RJ may have alluded to is the ways that we store data into our database for the blockchain. There's this framework called Aragon that we put out a bounty for that will do a few things. One is to be able to store the data in a different form that is very much compacted and very quick to look up. Instead of level DB, it's in a different database format that's stored in a binary tree format. That does not only just enable I/O or input-output to the drive, I/O speed to be faster and more efficient. It also enables data to be stored in a very compact way. So, for example, in Binance Smart Chain's use case, when some of the node operators implemented Aragon as a framework, their full archive node, which has the history of the entire chain, shrunk from 20 terabytes down to 4. So that's a 5x improvement on the storage size. The node operators were really happy, and also the chain became a bit more stable, a bit faster. So that's what we're looking at this point. So far, ChainStack has suggested that we use this and have signed up for the bounty. We may have an opportunity to also contribute from within if our hiring process is catching up, and be able to hire team members that have experiences with Aragon. A third thing is around state sync. Some of the things that we can do is also to be able to, this is more for node operators and for scalability in some ways. If we were to spin up a new node in order to try to catch up, back up from the cloud and catch up to the latest block, it could take about a day or a day and a half. So if we see a surge in traffic, we just can't scale that way. We can't just automatically scale up within minutes, right? So some other ways that that we discovered is that there are ways to increase the state sync speed through BitTorrent style sort of a sync through multiple peers, and you can then mesh all the data together on the fly to be able to sync a particular node. It takes from like 9 hours or 18 hours to like down to a couple of hours, or maybe even less than that. So we haven't quite explored that yet, but we've discovered that that's one option that we can look at. I think the Ethereum Foundation have done something like that similarly recently. So those are some of the promising advancements that we can look at in the near future. Again, no ETA on this. It's still in research mode, but we're very excited with this discovery.
Thank you, Jack. And to anyone of the team, we're aware that to reduce arbitrage spam attacks, sometimes it's necessary to increase GUI and transaction fee slightly. Will there be opportunities in the future to reduce this again if we can get arbitrage spam to fail? And if not, why?
Yeah, so for the transaction fee model, we're actually also working on like a better fee suggestion algorithm, so that the RPC, the suggest gas price RPC, will give a better estimate for the end user, for them to have a better chance of getting the transaction included very quickly, even in the incidence of lots of transactions spamming the network. Besides that, we also plan to improve the kind of transaction prioritization and inclusion algorithm which happens in the leader node, so that it has a smarter way of selecting transactions and getting the right transaction in the block, and also kind of filtering out those other transactions that's clearly kind of malicious or generally having a similar pattern of spamming. So in regard of the fee, so right now we already at a very low level for gas fee price. The minimum gas price is 30 GUI right now, and in terms of the actual kind of fee user pay, we are at least, I would say, 10 times cheaper than some of the other networks that's running. Not only Ethereum. For Ethereum, maybe we are definitely hundreds times more cheaper. But for other similar networks, we're already at least 10 times cheaper. So it's already very cheap. I would say for some of the users that plays DFK, one of the reasons some of the transaction, especially the Quest transaction, may incur a high gas fee, is because the Quest, as I wrote in the Twitter thread, the Quest transaction is actually very complicated. It's taking millions of gas for a single transaction, and the reason the gas fee can get a little bit higher is because it's taking a lot of the network resources. So that's something is inevitable, because if your transaction use up all the computation power of the network, then you have to pay a higher gas fee. Otherwise, then everybody will send a lot of this transaction, and the network will get overloaded, just like the spam. So the normal user, if they send a lot of complex transaction, because of the fee is very minimum, that can also become like a spam transaction because it's overloading the network. So one thing we can do is having, like, as I said, a better kind of a gas estimation, and also a better, smarter minimum gas setting algorithm, so that when there are lots of spams, the leader node actually can adjust the minimum gas floor to kind of filter out some of the spam transactions and making a healthier network.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've been a Harmony community member for some time now, and I still don't think I've gone past one Harmony in transaction fees, so I'm not complaining at the moment for sure. So next, I maybe this one's for Daniel. So we've recently seen some great work by Sean Wellness Node, with him creating the community sentiment report for the last quarter, which gave some great insight. Gave some great insight on how the community was feeling. Could you possibly mention, Daniel, some of the things that came to light during this report, but most importantly, what Harmony are planning to do about the things that came to light?
Certainly. And before I say anything about it, first I want to thank publicly here in this chat, thank Sean, the moderators who also helped him out, and the community members who have been vocal in a constructive manner to help us see some of these areas in which we can improve. So I see Sean is on this call. Thank you. And on top of that, so the sentiment report, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, you just go to harmony.1/Q1 sentiment, and I'll take you to the Q1 sentiment Q1 community sentiment report that was put together. It's pretty thorough. It's not too long of a read, and it's actually a pretty easy read on top of that. And in that, you'll see that Sean put together, along with help, of course, put together 3 areas of improvement or possible improvement for us to try and continue building and improving on community sentiment. So 3 areas were identified. I'll just kind of like go through them one at a time here. The first one that you'll see on that list is about external communication. And what did we learn there? So first, we learned that we need to be more clear on our announcements and our projects, but more specifically, like clear on what the story is, right? Like what is it? What is the announcement? But not just what is it, and being clear with what it is. We also need to be clear on the why and the how, right? Why are we doing this? Why is this beneficial to the community? Why is this beneficial to the ecosystem? And yeah, so I feel like we can do a better job at that. And so then the question becomes, what are we going to do about that? How are we going to improve external communication? Well, there's a couple of things that we are looking at. There's a few things I won't mention because we're still trying to figure out how to do it, how to do it best. But one way that we're able to implement pretty quickly is a weekly report or a weekly newsletter, right? And that's going to help us in a couple of ways. One, it's going to help us communicate more frequently. And 2, it's going to help us connect more with the community if we craft this properly. And I when I say craft, really, I just mean if it's written in the right way. So what's the right way? Well, the right way is easy to digest, written specifically for the community, not using complex technical jargon that we might see in some announcements or anything. It's almost like a letter to the community every week. And taking that further, the person who's writing this is actually from the community, and is primarily on Reddit, but he's also on other platforms. And again, it's to connect us with the community and for the community to understand what it is that we're doing, give you a bit of like behind the scenes look as well, as to like what the engineers, what the team is doing. So the newsletter is going to be, the first one's going to be published later today. The first one's a little lengthy because we include, or as his name's Matt, Matt includes a Q1 recap. So we just kind of briefly go over like January, February, March, and some of the things that have happened So it's going to be longer than the standard newsletter that we want to put out moving forward. But you'll also find it's going to be broken up into sections. So one of the sections is going to be like Harmony Insider, and Matt's going to be interviewing, brief Q&A with various team members every single week, finding out what it is that they're doing. I know that we have the all hands meeting every Monday, and that gets posted to YouTube. So please, anyone listening, feel free to check that out every week. But this is going to be more like person to person, one to one. Give me a little bit more detail on exactly what you're doing, even if it's technical. Let's try to break it down for the community to understand. And there's going to be more sections similar to that. Events that might be coming up for the week. Any major announcements, accomplishments, all will be wrapped up there. So that's one way, is the weekly newsletter. And we're looking to, again, publish that every Friday. One thing that we're looking at as well for external communication is taking what we're writing and putting it into video format. So some of you might remember the Harmony Garage that Sam used to put on YouTube. Personally, I loved it. And it went pretty well with the community when we had that going. Of course, the workload, Sam's workload rather, kind of prevents us from posting that video now, but we're looking to possibly kind of bring that back. It won't be the Harmony Garage if we do it. It won't be the Harmony Garage, but it's going to be a video format of the weekly newsletter. Short segments posted to YouTube, keeping the community up to date. And again, just we want to over communicate and keep everyone posted as to what's going on. So that's the first one. That's external communication. Be clear on the what, include the why, include the how, increase the frequency at which we're communicating, and communicate directly to the community. The second thing that you'll see on the sentiment report talks about internal communication. And that's another way that we want to improve, is communicating internally between the groups. So, one thing that I said at the beginning of the call, Bricktop, you asked like what it is that I do. And sometimes that's a little not hard to say, but because we all wear different hats, we can say, here's what my priority is. But then, we can go on about all of the different ways, all the other things that we're doing. So, we're all wearing multiple hats, and we're all extremely busy to say the least, but we still need to be in sync. And for the most part we are, but we can improve. So how are we going to do that? In the report, you'll see that we mention a bit about shifting priorities with a few people. One person is Give. You'll probably know who Give is. He's on the team. And Give is now, starting just a few days ago, is spearheading our products and improvements on internal communication. So that's his primary focus. Again, we all wear many hats, but that's the primary for him. On top of that, we're looking to, and we're in the process of onboarding a couple of project managers. So with the project managers that we're onboarding, with any project manager, it's making sure that whatever it is that we're working on as a team, if there are any blockers, if there are any issues in bringing that to launch, that those issues, those blockers are communicated clearly within the group. Again, it's about keeping each other on the same page, and these project managers that we're onboarding will help with that greatly. That's internal communication. The last thing that you'll see on the sentiment report is follow through, right? So going back to external communication, even if we improve greatly on that and knock it out the park, we still have item number 3, which is like a phase 2, right? Item number 1 is phase 1. Item number 3 is phase 2. And that's following through on that communication. So if we announce something, if we announce that we're, launching this awesome product, we can't let it just die there. Or we can't wait 3 months, 4 months, 6 months until we mention it again. Or if we do launch a product, the work's not done, right? It might sound like the work is done, but it really isn't, right? So to give you an example, the BTC bridge, we had a soft launch on the BTC bridge, and we've released some news on it through Twitter, mostly statistics. But what you guys might not know of is the back-end work that's still going on, the feature enhancements, the security enhancements that the engineers are still working on. Might not know about that because those are the things that we're not following through with. That's what I want for us to fix. I want us to fix the follow-through communication. That's item number 3, phase 2 of item number 1. And to do that, one of the things that we're looking at now is also bringing on a product manager, right? I previously spoke about project, but there's a difference between the project manager and the product manager. And with those two combined, the goal is that we're not just looking at the launch, we're looking at the full life cycle of it, right? So we can't just say that our milestone is launch or announcement. We have to first define the entire life cycle, and then for each point along that life cycle, identify ways to communicate that out to the community. So that's what we're working on as well. And hopefully through what we're doing here, it's not going to be an overnight thing, right? Like, this stuff takes time. So we're starting out with the 1 weekly, we're onboarding project managers, blah, 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 blah. It's going to take time. But what I'm hoping is that, like, over time, through these efforts, these 3 issues will be a thing of the past, and hopefully soon. It will take time, but one thing I do want to mention to kind of wrap that up is that we are taking it seriously. If we weren't, we wouldn't have gone through all that effort to just to put this all together, and put this plan into motion. But that's the sentiment report. Again, thank you, Sean. We will have a Q2. Fingers crossed. Sean will also spearhead that, because he did such a really good job with Q1. So hopefully we'll aim to have a Q2 report, and we'll come back to the space, talk about that and talk about what we've done for Q1. But yeah, it's something that we're taking seriously, and we want you guys to know that. Not sure if that helps answer that question, Brick.
That was absolutely perfect, and thank you, Daniel, for putting so much kind of attention into the report that Wellness made. And Wellness, you did some great work, so thank you so much for giving the team some really great insight onto how the community is feeling. You can find this information at the top of the spaces, guys. We've included a tweet that includes the community sentiment report. You can take a look at that. And you can also see how Harmony has responded to that, which is the really great stuff, what's going to happen because of the information that's come to light. So keep up the great work, Daniel. And we're really looking forward to seeing these changes being implemented. So now...
One really quick, sorry, just one last thing. And this is something I wrote recently on the subreddit, r/Harmony_1. You'll see I put a post there yesterday. It should be near the top because of the upvotes that it's received. But the basic message is, and I'm speaking for myself here, but I want to bring things back to basics, at least with our communication to the community. I want to bring things back to basics. I want to bring things back to what the team is doing, what we're doing with the technology that we're building, what is it that we're launching, and really showcase the team and their day-to-day. I want to bring it back to the technology. I want to bring it back to things that that really excite people. So if there's anyone here that's listening, I'm sure we'll open it up to like a Q&A. But if there's anyone here listening, if you guys have any suggestions, or if you just want to speak up and say what it is that you want more of, please do so. I really want to hear it.
Fantastic. And we will try to, from the community DAO, we'll try to echo, communications coming from the core team. And also, I believe, the creative DAO will be doing that also and trying to help out with the whole message there. So yeah, we're going to open the floor up for questions from community members shortly. If you would like to ask any questions, please request the mic. In the meantime, whilst we wait for a couple of people to do this, I will read some questions that previously were submitted by community members. So we have a question from Jose Campana, and he's asked, is there a solution to RPC issues that don't require users manually switching RPCs when problems occur? And that's open to any team member.
More suited for RJ or Jack?
I'm not sure how to answer that because
already talked mostly about all the solutions, right? As we talked, but I think in summary, one of the thing is we are definitely handling tens or even 100 times more traffic than other network. That's one of the major reasons that RPC is not stable. And the two, we need to add a better relimiting to filter out some of the spam calls. And that will greatly reduce the burden on our traffic. So as a comparison, so the amount of traffic we're handling is maybe the sum of a couple of other networks' traffic, because we're handling tens of billions and most of the other network. And also I know that even Coinbase internal kind of RPC system only handle like hundreds of millions or at most 1 billion. We're handling tens of billions. So that's a major reason the RPC is heavily overloaded and sometimes not stable. So huge traffic, we're going to cut it by adding a better rate limiting. And also at the same time, we're optimizing the RPC serving the machine, the node software, such as we're going to optimize some of the heavily used RPC calls, such as get logs, do EVM call. Those heavily used RPC, once migrated to a more scalable architecture, like a more indexed, like an indexed database serving stack, and that will greatly reduce the cost of serving those, and also increase the overall kind of capability of our RPC to handle more calls like this. Yeah, I think Jack can add more about all the infrastructure side change.
Right. The reason I said I didn't know how to answer that is because I thought we've talked a lot about all the things that we've been doing and have done and are planning to do. Maybe I can. I just want to understand that the question was very specific and also doesn't have a lot of context. So I don't want to answer something and then it just totally miss what the question means. But I'm just best here. So one of the things that we are looking into is, like I said earlier, something called white labeling our API endpoint. So you can keep your API.harmony.1 endpoint on your MetaMask without needing to switch. But we could switch internally what API.harmony.1 means or goes to. some of the things that RJ was alluding to and I was talking about earlier is like some of the get logs call that you may not know that you're using through DeFi Kingdoms, for example. There's a lot of calls to get logs. It's a method in the RPC endpoint that pulls a lot of historical information. And also, for example, when you pop up all of the liquidity pairs in your seed box, a lot of get logs call are fired off. So things like that can happen, and you can stay with your setting on MetaMask, and then we will be routing it differently at the back end. For get logs call, we will route it to something called an index database at the back end, and you won't even know it's happening. So yes, we are trying our best so that you don't need to make any changes. But if you go to look at other chains like Polygon or Phantom, they have multiple endpoints that they show. They do show like ChainStack, QuickNode, Infura as options that you can choose, other than the typical one from Phantom or Polygon. So it's not atypical for people to choose different endpoints or domain names that they put into their MetaMask as Harmony mainnet, for example. So I hope you're not too worried about making that switch if that option is made available. Actually, it's already documented on our Harmony docs that says, hey, these are the options that you can choose from. So yeah, I hope you're not too worried about making those changes if necessary. But if your experience is smooth with some of the third-party providers, please go ahead and continue using them. But if you prefer to use the Harmony.1 domain with API.harmony.1, we will definitely try our best to make your experience as seamless as possible. I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jack. And we have a question from Ben Stakery-Do. He's asked, how safe is our P2P, and could a DDoS attack be a problem for us in the future?
So for the P2P network, we're using the libp2p library for the P2P communication. So previously we had an issue that some of the P2P message are overly broadcasted and repeated, and that's causing kind of echoing, and that's what I wrote already in the detail in one of the postmortem about the network issue a couple months ago. So we already fine-tuned the parameters so that the P2P network send messages only as needed, but not redundantly. In the meantime, we also added rate limiting on the P2P message level, so that if there are malicious spammers spamming P2P messages to the network, their message will be basically kind of invalidated and won't be broadcasted across all the network. We also added a lot of kind of a message validation, so that only the valid kind of network message, such as consensus message or transaction message or block message, are accepted and broadcasted. All the other messages, such as spams or even stale messages, won't be accepted and processed. So that's kind of some of the measurement we already added to enhance the robustness and stability of the P2P layer. Looking forward, we are actually also gonna add more kind of infrastructure to do more heavy load test on the P2P layer to really find the potential weakness before it happens and patch it before it really happens on the mainnet.
Fantastic. And then we have a question from Hound Validator. He's asked, we currently have 88 unelected validators. Could there be a way to make use of their unelected validator nodes and use them as RPC endpoints?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So totally we could utilize some of the validator nodes to serve the RPC. This will definitely need a close coordination and communication and also agreement with our validator with our validator runners. So we didn't consider this approach before because validator machines are very important to support the consensus and making sure the chain, actually the blocks are produced in time, right, to ensure the 2-second finality. So we didn't want to burden more load on those machines from the validator. But looking forward, if that's something the validator community is also considering, we can definitely have some conversation and discussion with them. And potentially, definitely, we're going to provide incentive for them to serve the RPC traffic from their node. But definitely we're open for discussion about this idea.
Thank you. And the last question from Hound Validator, he's asked, can the team set 1 transaction per second to avoid spam?
So his question is, it's not 100% clear, but I assume it means whether we can limit the number of transactions a certain address can send per block, right? If that's the real question, so that's not something that's gonna work to prevent the spams. It will help, but very marginally. It won't solve the root cause and the real problem, because it's a permissions network and people can create any address as they want, especially for the spammers. And for this last case of spam, it actually happened that the arbitrage bots create lots of different addresses and send transactions from different addresses. So there is unlimited address they can create. So even though if we set a limit on the number of transactions a certain address can send per block, they can create lots of address and basically do the SIBO attack and spam. And that won't solve the real problem, and it may also affect the experience of some real users who want to send more transactions in the same block. So yeah, the simple question is this is not a solution we can adopt. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And sorry, I had one more question from Ben Staker-We-Do. He said, is there a way to prevent network and RPC structure from spamming again? There was arbitrage bots with 100 transactions in 7 seconds.
If I understand the question correctly, I think it's just asking whether how can we prevent the spam happening again, right? And as I wrote in the Twitter thread, and the root cause is the transaction ordering in the mempool. Basically, when the transactions are submitted to the network, it should be ordered and submitted in the block. The previous ordering was random, and that caused an arbitrage opportunity by the arbitrage bot to spam lots of transactions and getting a higher chance of winning the arbitrage opportunity. Because of the transaction ordering are random, they need to send a lot of spam to get a higher chance. So after the recent fix where we order the transaction based on the time it's received, so the previous strategy of spamming to win is no longer valid. And actually, immediately once we deploy the fix, the spammer arbitrage bots changed their strategy and not spamming the network anymore. So if you see right now, most of the blocks are containing the transaction from the real user. Lots of DFK quest transactions. Not much kind of hundreds of transactions with similar code, with similar kind of content. Those are from spams. Right now, they mostly disappeared. Yeah, so we already fixed this arbitrage bot spamming problem.
Thank you, RJ. And I believe Hermes DeFi has a question.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Actually, that was like a perfect segue. So this is Austin from Hermes. But I did have a follow-up question about two things that were just discussed. One, for the transaction ordering fix, this still doesn't solve the root cause of like the mempool not being encrypted. And I was wondering if there are technical barriers in order to have that feature available on Harmony.
So you're saying one option is to like make the mempool totally kind of encrypted and not like accessible to the public?
Yeah, just for that block that is being written, such that the transaction bots can't identify pending transactions within the mempool.
I think since our blockchain is totally kind of transparent and permissionless, even if we implement this feature, it will hurt some of the other users, right? Where they want to check the pending transaction and the status for like a good purpose, and also for other like situations, even for arbitrage bots. Even though previously they spammed the network and it's kind of a bad thing, but arbitrage bots and also liquidation bots or any other kind of similar arbitrage mechanism are actually a integral or important part for the DeFi ecosystem or other ecosystem, because they're the one to smooth out some of the imbalances in the DeFi ecosystem. So they're actually, arbitrage bots are not bad thing. It's just this particular situation caused them to hurt the network kind of inadvertently, right? So we cannot just simply like hide everything on the mempool and make the arbitrage bot or other liquidation runners not able to do their job, and that will also hurt the ecosystem.
Yeah. I think those are two really good points as to why full encryption of every block is not like necessary, or it actually can be hurtful in some cases. It's just these bots. I have a question, I guess, like, are they targeted to specific like entities, or is this sort of the exchanges that they're operating on? As someone who is launching an exchange, like, we've been doing a lot of research into how we can prevent front running, because it's been something that's been happening to our tokens forever on Harmony. So we have a very like keen interest on trying to make this protected technology available, such that new tokens with low liquidity aren't constantly front run, which is currently what's happening on a lot of platforms.
Yeah, I think the better solution is to maybe implement zero knowledge technology on the application, on the specific application level, right? Instead of having a clear cut to all the applications on the protocol level, is probably a more flexible or more a better solution to implement specifically privacy or encryption mechanism for a specific app, right? Because we don't want to like have a clear-cut solution, because that may not fit like the other applications, right? Each application have their own specific kind of requirement, and we don't want to move to one side to the extreme, right? Yeah.
Thank you. And Ben Stakeredo, I believe, has another question.
Yeah, about Hermes, this was a great question. And I think there was some talk proposal for the Hopper network. And when this could be implemented on Harmony, I think this could be a solution.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the third-party protocols or on-chain solutions can actually integrate with us. Instead of changing the protocol to affect everybody, we can just tailor the solution and integrate some of the specific solutions for specific applications.
Definitely. That's a great suggestion, Cerebral. We will reconnect with Hopper because Hopper Network, the Hopper team is part of the Project X investments that we did. So I'm particularly familiar with that because I was part of that team that made that investment. I'm glad you brought that up, and we will connect with them and move forward with this and see how we can integrate it sooner than later. This is wonderful. Thank you.
And next, I believe Cerebral Gaming has a question.
Hey, RJ. Hey, Jack. Thanks for coming on today. My question is, if at this smaller scale that we're currently at, considering our market size and user base, as that continues to grow organically, how are we planning to scale that on a larger level? Because if we're already having RPC issues with these front-run bots and arbitrage bots and things like that, how are we going to scale it to where actual users, as they grow in numbers, can access the network without having these issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as we said, right now, there's still a lot of room to improve on the RPC serving stack. So we could easily increase the efficiency maybe 10x because there are lots of room to improve. So that basically gives us a lot of room for the growth of the adoption. So on the RPC serving stack, that's more like a Web 2 kind of engineering kind of question. So there are lots of solutions in the cloud kind of infrastructure where you can scale the number of nodes as the traffic increase. So that's already a kind of a mature solution to that. We just need to kind of fix the current problem and change our architecture so that it's according to scalable infrastructure, as in the traditional Web 2 kind of technology. On the chain side, right now, the Shard0 are not fully used yet. We still have maybe every block right now, maybe only 20% of the kind of room or gas limit are used. So there's still lots of room, even for Shard0 to have more users. And we also have, as we said, we also have the plan to extend to the other shard for more usage of the other shards, right? So I would say we still have maybe, including other shard, we still have lots of rooms for more adoption and more users. So in the case where in the future, all of the resources of the shards are maxed out, the original plan for the sharding is we can have a governance proposal and to launch new shards. Basically, we can, instead of 4 shards, we can launch another 4 shards to increase the network capacity to serve more users. And that's more like a long-term kind of thing we need to do. Yeah. So overall, on every part, RPC or chain level, they're all those solutions already thought about. Yeah, for extending our capacity to really serve millions, hundreds of millions of users.
Fantastic. Thanks for that answer, RJ. And we have Wellness. Welcome up, Wellness.
Thank you. I might be making a fool of myself with this question, but I have a two-part question. Do Harmony RPCs currently have any traffic or rate limiting features based on usage?
Yes, there are. There are multiple types of rate limits. As RJ alluded earlier, on the node itself, we try to detect from a single IP address to see how many calls they'll be making, and there's a parameter we set, and we rate limit on a node level that way. At the load balancer level, there are multiple types of load balancers because we are on different data centers. And on some load balancers, we are limited to a window of time that we look at. We're not going to expose the number, but imagine you look at a window of 5 or 10 minutes or 1 minute, and within that minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, if that call from a particular IP address exceed a certain number, a certain count, we will then rate limit. There are different rate limit strategies and algorithms, like the concept of a burst. For example, if we rate limit 10 calls per second or 2 calls per second, and then all of a sudden you have a quest that you want to complete, and that takes up another like 6 calls or 20 calls or 100 calls in a burst. For example, if you use loot swap, I think that happens quite a bit when you do compounding. That the UI does something really bad, and there's like multiple calls, and we see that in our logs, saying that, hey, you know what, loot swap app is actually doing all these repetitive calls, and we rate limit it, unfortunately. So yes, we do have rate limits at the node level and also at the load balancer level.
Okay, thank you. Oh,
sure.
Thank you for the clarification. So maybe my question will be irrelevant now, but my question pertained to potentially having a RPC specified for like community use with extremely aggressive RPC limits, and then splitting off a separate one for super users with less RPC limits or looser RPC limits. And then that would ensure that general casual users would have decent access to reliable RPCs without them getting overloaded by super users.
Yes, that's definitely an option. In fact, I think that is a very good proposal to be part of the RPC DAO. The RPC DAO was written out some time ago, and the budget for it is actually approved for $1.2 million for the first year of its bootstrap. What you just mentioned is a freemium model, where, like you said, for a community-based endpoint, it's free to use, but the service level of uptime may not be as great as a super user kind of level, where you may introduce an API key, and for that API key, you can sort of like open up an account and pay a monthly fee to use that more aggressive endpoint that a DApp or a power user could use at a premium fee for better uptime and less of a rate limiting. That can definitely be added into the RPC DAO as one of the implementations. So it actually becomes a very sustainable model where a group of node operators can actually like run nodes and have a premium model on top of that to get fees and be paid for providing a great service.
Right, I'm familiar with the freemium model that servers like ChainStack offer, but I guess my question was more specifically to the free RPC that Harmony offers. Are we seeing a lot of congestion due to super users? Could we potentially put in like an aggressive limit on the public facing and then have a second RPC to deal with those super users through the official Harmony RPC?
Since if we put it out publicly, it can be abused. So I don't know whether I can come up with a solution here in this discussion, but it could be worth researching on this. Stakeridu, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this can be splitted by if you have a special token EU wallet.
I'm not sure. RJ, any ideas?
So yeah, actually, this idea we also thought about like separating the RPC serving logic. Actually, right now we mixed the normal kind of developer and user RPCs for the applications, and also the staking related RPCs, such as reading the delegator data, reading the validator information. So those RPCs are mixed together and served by the same node. So if they're like people are calling the staking RPC, which actually is very heavy, there's lots of data, it may affect the node, and it may not affect the ability of the node to serve the normal application related RPC. So we actually consider separating these two group of RPCs. For the apps, they talk to the app specific RPC endpoint. For the staking related RPC used by validators or other third-party partners to display the staking information, they talk to another RPC. This is something in the plan. We haven't implemented it yet. But in general, I think the problem right now is definitely a clear kind of separation of different tiers of usage for professionals or for normal users, and setting up different tiers of rate limiting. Right, just like a mature service like Infura, each project, you need to have a project ID, you need to have certain quota, and everything is clearly kind of allocated. The power is, the traffic quota is clearly allocated based on your tiers. For now, for us, we haven't had the luxury to really have this kind of complicated system. Everything is kind of free to use. It's all public. Yeah, everything mixed up, and that's definitely some area that we've been kind of considering to improve, to like make the RPC more stable and more efficient.
The solution may be dependent on the wallet providers as well, because I think what you're speaking to is something that could require like a handshaking model, authentication of sorts, and if the wallet itself does not perform that for you, then we may be limited to that. Right now, I've not seen a wallet that could help have a special authenticated method to say, hey, I'm so and so, I'm a super user, I have this token. Unless the wallet provider does that on the client side, I'm not sure whether on the server side we can facilitate that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I believe we have Michael Otis with Fuzz Finance.
How's it going? Sorry to get away from the RPC stuff. I know we've been talking about that for a little while. I just had a few questions. When we start to expand to multiple shards and cross-shard transactions, I know I've brought this up to you, RJ, a few times. One general question, I suppose, is about our LevelDB architecture, and if we've ever really considered using Redis for caching first, and then depositing that into the LevelDB as kind of you have the caching service, and then that goes into the LevelDB. But my main question would be, when we have multiple shards, you had said that we maybe need to have a layer 2 protocol to handle some sort of routing. I know at the moment we only have 4 shards. Ethereum's going to have, I think, like 60 some shards. And so each shard is going to have their own network ID. And so for an average user, they don't want to keep track of 60 some or 4 shard IDs and bounce back and forth and then have applications try to handle that experience for them. And from that, and from like a developer, I mean, how would that even work with the cross-shard transactions? Where are you keeping your data? Or are we going to have to use some sort of diamond storage, or where the computation is on 0 but storage is on a different shard, or vice versa? What are your recommendations, and where do you see the chain progressing from more of a user experience and maybe a developer experience in the future when we get to multiple shards?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you can think of different shard just like different chains, right? It has different chain ID, and the kind of a user data are all separate, but the user can control the same account on different shards. So what we're going to provide with a cross-shard messaging protocol is just like a very efficient and flexible way to connect all these shards so that you can implement the logic to send anything between the shard, right? The user can send anything, any asset, any message between the shard. So eventually, I will imagine, just like for different chains, if you develop applications, you first definitely you can experiment by launching on the single shard, and as the user adoption grows, and when that shard has maybe generally overloaded with higher transaction fee, you may extend to extend your application to the other shards, but you need to implement kind of the cross shard logic to take care of your token issuance. Make sure the tokens there's no more token issued, right? The token on the previous shard are still the token, and users have to move those tokens to the new shard. So I would say depends on your specific application. For games, just like DeFi Kingdom, they can extend their their kingdom, right, to create more region for the game, and more users, just like a traditional kind of game applications. There can be different servers. Like one server is overloaded, you can have multiple servers. In this case, it's like one shard. It has lots of users in one shard. You can create another instance, maybe in a different style. Just like in DFK, they have the crystal well. You can have the same kind of different region launching on the other shard, and kind of divert some of the users to the other shard. For each specific application, you need to consider specific use cases, like whether you just connect the different regions just by user sending different tokens, or you have more in-depth kind of interaction between the two instances in the different shards. So I would say you probably don't want to have very tight coupling of the instance from two different shards, because as I said, the shards are just like chains. You won't have very deeply composable functionality between the instance of different shards. You have to kind of separate them in a clear manner and let the users to choose which instance they're going to use more, and then they can migrate some of their tokens or their assets to those regions or those shards, and you are providing the logic to move your application's assets between the shards. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so for the most part. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone from the questions from the community. I guess it's probably time to tie this up. I just wanted to ask them one more question, just on a nice positive note. Daniel, if you mind asking, with all the changes that are taking effect with Harmony after the community sentiment report, which of those things are you kind of most looking forward to? Just yourself.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm just with all the changes that are happening due to the community sentiment report, I was wondering personally what you're looking forward to the most out of those changes.
What I'm looking forward to most, I kind of hinted at the not hinted. I mentioned that we're looking into, right? Again, no promises. We're just looking into it, but looking into the possibility of bringing the 1 week. Well, first off, let me take a step back. The 1 weekly, and refining that. The first one's not going to be perfect, but we want to get something out there today, and we're going to release them every Friday. But as we refine that and get the right format down, I'm really looking forward to the value that that's going to bring. On top of that, I'm really looking forward to continuing our look into the possibility of bringing that to video format. Like I said, I really liked what the Harmony Garage provided to the community. I want to bring something like that back. And I'm really excited on not just providing short but helpful updates to everyone on a weekly basis, but also the creative aspect to it as well. I just find that fun myself. Those are the two things that I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, I'm also looking forward to the results that's going to bring. I'm really looking forward to really anything that has to do with getting back to basics. And that's what I mentioned on that Reddit post is I want to go back to basics with our external community communication. I'm real eager to continue what we're doing and do more. Whatever that happens to be, in addition to what I've already described. What else? I would have to also say I'm really looking forward to working more closely with our project managers. That's something that I started to do a few weeks back, getting myself more involved with management of our launches. I want to be more involved than I already have been. So that's a work in progress. I'm looking forward to that because as I'm closer to it, the closer I am to that, the more I get to share with everyone else. And give, this is one thing I'm looking forward to is giving people more insight to what we're doing behind the scenes. I think we can do a much better job at communicating that, right? Everyone is super busy, but a lot of you might not be aware of exactly what's going on. So I'm looking forward to shedding some light as to what's happening behind the scenes. What's keeping us so busy? What is it that the engineers are excited about? I'm excited about that. So hope that answers your question.
It really does, Daniel. And personally, I mean, I'm really excited to see what comes of this. I was so excited when I seen the community sentiment report and that Harmony was so quick to respond with some really great ideas. It certainly makes us feel happy as community members to see that, we're putting more focus in certain areas. And just the fact that Harmony have admitted that there was things that we could have done better as usual, and we're going in the right direction, which is the most important thing. So again, thank you for that. I just wanted to thank Harmonious Dude for hosting today, and for the core team members, along with Wellness, with the work that he's been doing. Thank you so much for spending the time to come and speak to us today, and as Daniel said, get back to basics and talk to the team, talk to the community, and have a little bit more transparency, which we all love in blockchain. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, guys. I know you've got a lot of work on right now, and we really appreciate you taking a moment out to come and speak to us. So thank you so much for that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us.
Yeah, thank you again. And last thing I'll mention here before we drop off is we also have an AMA on Reddit. So if you just go to the subreddit, r/harmony_1, at the very top you'll see there's an AMA thread where questions are being posted. So feel free to drop in, post a question there. The focus there is kind of similar to what we're talking about here, and it's about the network and state of the network, what we're doing, what the engineers are doing, and so on. So feel free to stop in, ask a question, upvote your favorite question so that they stand out too, because we want to get out there and we want to talk to everyone in the community. And thank you again for hosting us. Seriously, it's been awesome.
You're more than welcome, and we are here if you need any messages putting out there to the community. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what else we come to in the future. And again, thank you guys, and thank you for everyone that's shown up today to take an interest in what the core team's doing. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.